Hello, and welcome to the Don't Panic, It's Just Data podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people who are impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Doug Laney. I'm the Data and Analytics Strategy Innovation Fellow with West Monroe, and today I'm talking to Katrina M. Khan, Senior Practice Director of Data Science at Teradata, and Sri Raghavan, Principal of Data Science and Analytics at AWS, about their partnership and generative AI innovation. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on, and happy to be here with Doug and Katrina.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and Sri today as well.
Great, likewise. So let's start off with the partnership question about the partnership itself. How has the AWS partnership evolved, and what key milestones have shaped the current state?
Terrific. I can take this, Katrina, if you want. So the AWS partnership has shown a marked increase both in intensity as well as in importance in the last, 4 or 5 years. In particular, in the last 18 months, the growth has been stratospheric. From the standpoint of numbers of things we've done as far as the AWS marketplace is concerned, in terms of solutions integrations, in terms of go-to-market, global reach, and whatnot. And while we can give a lot of numbers to be able to support that statement, one particular thing that I'll bring up in the interest of brevity here is the amount of work that the two sides have done as far as generative AI is concerned. We have integrated AWS's solution, which is a service called Bedrock, with core capabilities in the Teradata side, which I'm sure Katrina has got a far better handle than I do, into Bedrock. It's called Vantage Cloud Lake, into Bedrock, which is AWS's AI services. So we've addressed a lot of very important business challenges across a wide variety of industries, particularly things like financial services, healthcare, where we've generated fraud detection outcomes, or we've generated better patient healthcare outcomes, and so on. So the long story short, the technological integration between the two companies have been fantastic, number one. The go-to-market capabilities that we've brought to the table in terms of addressing new market segments, new customers, and so on has also been great. We've added new channels of participation like AWS Marketplace, and also new geographies where we've addressed a lot of business issues with our vast numbers of customers. Let me stop here. I'm happy to turn this over to Katrina to provide more content from the Teradata side as well.
Great. Thanks, Sri. I think I'd like to start out and say our partnership with AWS is the leading CSP in regards to percentage of customers leveraging this partnership between AWS and Teradata. And because of that, Sri referenced the technology integration. It's because of that we've been able to take advantage of this kind of better together story with AWS, whether it's SageMaker, the analytics workbench, whether it's integration with Bedrock, the availability of what's on the marketplace today. That's incredible. And if we think about it, what Teradata has enabled for a long time is this premier analytics platform that's built around this hybrid environment where we're really focused on the trusted security and the needs along the flexibility and the performance and the ability to scale. And that ability to scale is really built on parallel processing engine. And just to kind of give you an idea of that, if you think about large, and these are customers we have and work with in common with AWS, large manufacturers, oil and gas companies, airlines, and think about them having to scale their demand forecasting or performance and maintenance analytics from hundreds of models to tens to thousands of models. In fact, we have a manufacturer that we work in common with that they have right now 4,300 product categories that they drive demand forecasting for on a regular basis. Now, that's just a subset of the 35,000 that they want to do on a monthly basis. Just to kind of give you an idea of scale, the teams must think about and ensure this model structure is efficient, robust, and scalable. So you can do high scale inference scoring, right? Imagine scoring 100 million records in a database in parallel, where that can be done in minutes inside Vantage Cloud Lake and really take advantage of that high performance parallel compute. Now, Sri mentioned Amazon Marketplace, SageMaker. I'm going to also mention Jumpstart and Bedrock, and talking about the GenAI opportunity a little bit. At Teradata, we have high performance native support for vector data. We've had that for decades. But with these new language model that everyone's trying to take advantage of, the scale of the vectors obviously is outscaling any of the work that's done in the past. So with our Cloud Lake running natively on Amazon Cloud, we're able to take advantage of all of your compute capabilities and leverage the different types of data, whether it's structured and unstructured. And one more thing I want to offer on this, if we take that foundation of vectors and in partnership with AWS, we're launching what we're calling Bring Your Own Large Language Models. Just a quick description about that. It's bringing GPU accelerated compute into the Vantage platform. And what that means is all these data sources that have never been near a Teradata system. Think about images, audio, even video, as well as unstructured text. We can now leverage all the open source language models and GenAI models to process that data, convert it into vectors, and bring those vectors into Vantage, and now combine that all with the other analytic capabilities to drive deeper insights for our customers.
That's incredible. Are there particular examples where folks have used this unstructured content?
Yeah, I have a lot of examples, and I'm not trying to steal anyone's thunder, but we're really excited about this. And, there's been a lot of question about benefits. Our enterprises, large enterprises, and Sri, I'm interested in your thoughts on this too. Are they seeing the benefits? Are they seeing the ROI? And we're seeing that our customers leverage this, the Vantage Cloud Lake platform on AWS, to focus on two primary opportunities around innovation. Augment and optimize their customer experience, which is always top of mind for brands as a differentiator, and/or augment and optimize internal processes and employee tools. Those are kind of the two top categories that we are seeing from the Teradata view. I'm curious, Sri, if you'd agree with that and what your thoughts are.
We absolutely do. We see that particularly for an enormous number of enterprises which use machine learning, generative AI capabilities are used to enhance machine learning functionality, which is really a big part of some of the work we're doing with our enterprises. But let me address the question that Doug also asked, which is, are we seeing a lot of the unstructured data today in enterprises? The answer is absolutely yes. Particularly, in fact, if anything, in a lot of cases, given the fact that data lakes and now lake houses, I guess, are a predominant part of the architecture in many organizations, you do see the tendency to dump an enormous amount of unstructured data into these lake houses. Why is it important? It's important because when Katrina mentioned things like vector databases, it's very important, right? Because what you do is now you're able to take all of the data, you're able to massage them, you're able to create vector embeddings out of that. And then potentially if somebody were to ask a question, particularly in the form of a chatbot, you can use vectors to be able to go and retrieve the right kinds of information. It's a classic part of the RAG architecture. So absolutely, we do see a tremendous amount of unstructured data today with a lot of enterprises, particularly with some of the use cases in the customer experience area, but also in terms of internal optimizations, we're seeing a lot of it as well.
Yeah, certainly a lot of interest in leveraging unstructured content in the realm of generative AI. But there must be some things that with transactional data that are happening, even better or faster than ever imagined as well.
Yes, in the sense that, look, transactional data has always been sort of a holy grail, right? Simply because it takes an enormous amount of time for you to actually cleanse it, to structure, to put it in a schematic that allows us to be able to access it. What unstructured data provides is overlaying context, which is extremely important for us to be able to address certain nuanced questions. For instance, I'll give you an example, right? For instance, with Teradata, we have something together called ask.ai. And this is where I think I'm stealing Katrina's thunder a little bit, because I know, Katrina, you were going to actually talk about it a little bit. From our previous conversations, we've had a lot of conversations about this. But nonetheless, I won't steal too much of your thunder. But the idea with ask.ai is to ask natural language questions of the data, which can be answered intelligently only with the contextualization of unstructured data alongside all the structured data formats that Vantage has been a pioneer of in the last 40 plus years or so, right? So clearly the two have to come, and the two have come in consort. And here's a good thing. it comes in concert at scale and at performance with both AWS and Teradata at play.
Yeah, I think that's a great positioning of that. It's around data intelligence and more enabling that conversational AI where a business user can ask questions of their data, right? Because now it's been vectorized and it's available to be questioned via natural language and processed and returned and output and insight. For example, if I am the CMO and I want to know, which of my media programs are driving the most conversion, I can ask that question. If I am a business owner of a specific product line, I can ask the question, which products and which segments of customers over this time frame, say the last 2 quarters, was the highest selling product for these segments of customers, including time series. So it becomes very interesting. And what it does is it makes these business insights, or what I would call the signal from your trusted data, your trusted analytics, and the trusted signal to be more available to the business user.
Very good. So let me turn the question to the topic of innovation. As an innovation fellow with West Monroe, my role is not only helping to develop new innovative offerings for our consulting firm, but also helping clients innovate with their data. So certainly you've seen among your customers a degree of innovation. I'd love to hear some of those stories.
I can take that, Shri, unless you want to jump in.
Go for it.
So we're seeing a lot of innovation around, can you imagine taking all this unstructured data, text, video, calls, complaints, whatever they are, and combining them and overlaying them with your traditional customer profile data? What does that enable you to do? If you think about various insights around complaint topics and that classification, more refined sentiment in real time, clustering in the summarization, and these insights driving into that 360 improve time to resolution and the effectiveness of resolution. So thinking about it from a customer complaint analyzer that even representatives or across channels could be used in real time.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned real time. It's certainly one of the holy grails of customer experiences, helping customers, dealing with customers effectively, understanding them in real time.
Absolutely. And there's a hunger for that, both as the consumer and those that are serving the consumer, right? Even in healthcare. I'll give you one more example, and then Shri, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I talked about this as augmenting it in 2 different ways, either the customer experience, which I just talked about, and the second is augmenting internal processes or employee tools or capabilities. So think about your doctor's health notes. Right? You go to the doctor, and what if we could use large language models to analyze doctor notes? By automating that extraction and the interpretation of that information, it really enables the doctors and the other providers serving the patients to provide and focus more on direct care. The other thing to think about is due to the confidentiality and HIPAA and around the information of the patients, if you're running this in database, right, it allows users to use open large language models for these use cases without data movement. So that's significant too. Scale, security, and reducing costs through, data movement that they would typically have to do.
Yeah, in today's world, data movement is so expensive given the large volume of data, and especially if you want to do any kind of analytics in real time, it's just a non-starter.
Absolutely.
I really like those examples, Katrina, and there are a few other examples that we can provide across different verticals, right? But I think Katrina has done a good job in terms of explaining the impact of those kinds of analytics across these use cases. Let me take it from a different angle in terms of what we're doing, not just together, of course, together, but also as individual organizations. We're making analytics easier, particularly generative. As we move from predictive into the generative piece, we're making it easier. Let me give you an example. 2 examples in particular. One is, as you can imagine, these large language models are fairly complex to begin with. We're trillions of parameters and dimensions are actually brought into it too over a large corpus of data and the models are constructed. And then you, of course, apply contextualized data on it to be able to do analytics. Now, what we're trying to do is to make it easier for a large class of analytics personas to be able to access these large language models and to be able to modify them. So, for instance, we have things like Amazon Q, which is our own AI assistant, which allows us to be able to generate code on the fly. And just so that you don't have to actually write specific snippets of code or complex bits of code on your own, you do have help to do that. A second example would be, as you can imagine, with a lot of the multimodal data that's come in, pictures, music, structured data, unstructured data of different kinds, you cannot resolve or address business questions based on just one large language model. So the question then becomes, how are you going to be able to create a framework for you to mix and match, pull together different kinds of large language models in a sensible manner to be able to address not only the ingestion of these multimodal data, but also to be able to address specific questions, taking all these different kinds of data into consideration. And so, for instance, here today we have what Rina talked about before, SageMaker Jumpstart, which allows us to be able to access the different kinds of large language models. For instance, we have our own large language models at AWS called Titan, but we also have Anthropic models, we have Llama models, and Mistral, and a few others that are part of the palette of available options for you to take advantage of when it comes to addressing these complex use cases. I think that's a very important innovation, and it's bound to get better in terms of accessibility for a wide range of personas. We're making AI more accessible, more secure, and certainly something which can be applied at scale to answer all these important questions that Katrina talked about in healthcare and manufacturing and financial services and so on.
It sounds like you're also creating these models in a manner that's very purpose-built. You mentioned a few different kinds of models. I wonder if you can shed a little light on some of the unique capabilities or specific capabilities of these models. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, right? I mean, the reason why it needs to be purpose-built is because there isn't one size fits all. Even during the day, and Katrina, I'm sure this is going to resonate with you because you and I have been in the field doing this for quite some time. Even today when we did machine learning models, right, we realized that there are certain kinds of machine learning functions which are applicable for certain kinds of problems. For instance, logistic regression models, you have to have binary data or data which is not continuous versus a regression model in general, which can work with continuous data. Similarly, you do have these kinds of large language models, which are very purpose-built, which ingest, let's say, certain models ingest only pictures for you to compare and make an assessment if there is a strong likelihood based on some input picture that you have, things like that. Or are you able to take in a vast quantity of music as inputs to be able to determine what this particular tune is, which requires a different kind of large language models. So yes, they are purpose-built, but here's the deal, right? Because of the vast varieties of data we're ingesting into our system, because a lakehouse allows us to be able to pull in data of different sizes, of different shapes, of different formats and what have you, you are in a position where you have to mix and match these models together to be able to address these kinds of questions. And I think that's where the purpose-built comes in very handy. But each bit of the purpose-built puzzle needs to fit in with the others to be able to answer certain questions very convincingly. And that's where we are.
Are there technologies that you have or are working on that will actually integrate those models and hand off information?
Yeah, we are. So SageMaker Jumpstart is a big part of what we have today. It's a palette of all these models. It's getting better. I'm not in any position to be able to disclose a roadmap for obvious reasons, but that is particularly one area in which we're working. We have Amazon Q as well, in which a lot of these innovations, particularly around building code, developing code, is also a part of the suite of tools we have today. And of course, Bedrock, which is the service which includes more and more of these large language models that are being included as part of this palette.
You know, I would comment to the kind of the purpose-built type models, maybe models that are task-oriented. They have one task. And it kind of makes me think of a couple of examples, at least one where video classification, right? Video classification, let's use a simple example as Funniest Home Videos. Most people can relate to that, where they're crowdsourcing videos. So they get hundreds and thousands of videos. And, we've put together different POCs and models and leveraging to classify those videos into different categories effectively that they can then be used in production. Real easy use case, an example that most people can relate to. And so, in relation to innovation, this bring your own language model is not only large language models, it could be domain specific models, maybe clinical models that are small or medium sized. The other part of that is to be able to think about sustainability, right? Sustainability was going to lead us to be more efficient with how we use our resources and optimizing our models that we use. So if we think about optimizing your workflow and optimizing your costs with GPU and a CPU approach, we're working together to help our customers architect the best case. It doesn't have to be everything that's run by the GPU hammer. Not necessary. In fact, more value is being found, I think, in this optimization period is around those more domain-specific, small to medium size. And so we're helping our customers leverage GPUs and CPUs for parallel inferencing in those approaches that result in that more cost-effective solution around whether it's large language models or generative AI use cases. So that's one thing we're thinking about and working very strategically with our customers and in partnership with AWS.
I will vociferously second that point around sustainability. It's very important for us here at AWS, and we've had conversations with Teradata around this. Large language models can consume a lot of energy and resources and all that. And there have been various studies, too many to count, which talk about the impact on the environment. And so to Katrina's point, we don't take a generalist approach towards using GPUs and CPUs in judicious combinations. We actually have done a lot of case-by-case formulations of what actually works in terms of not just addressing business problems for our customers, but also in terms of its minute impact as far as the environment is concerned, as far as sustainability is concerned. So we've developed, we think, a very good schematic approach towards figuring out when to use GPUs versus CPUs. Of course, we believe GPUs are very important. We have GPUs like Trainium and Inferentia as part of our architecture. But we are also extremely cognizant of the environmental impact. And we're not going to recommend GPUs for all use cases. And we're going to see what works best for our customers and in combination with our sustainability and footprint, which is extremely important for us.
It's very, very conscientious. Let me finish up with one last question here. With the advancements in the intersection of AI and cloud technologies, I'm wondering what proactive steps your organizations are taking to ensure that both your teams and also your customers are remaining agile and driving toward continuous innovation.
One of the big things that we've taken a lot of effort is in terms of explainability, in terms of the ethics we put around not just large language models, not just in the context of generative AI, but we do this in the context of predictive technologies as well. Because there is the last thing you want to do is, when somebody is applying for credit and you reject them on grounds that are ethically terrible, but also you run the risk of huge fines and whatnot. So one of the things we've done extensively, and we've taken a lot of effort, is to figure out how are we going to increase the explainability of our models. We're not perfect, but we're getting close and close to what we believe is a holy grail in terms of explainability, but also in terms of the ethical implementations of these kinds of models. So the decisions that are being made have a strong background, are defensible, and do not violate any known ethical principle that we certainly don't want to violate. So that is a huge part of the approach we're taking as far as not just generative AI, but overall in terms of analytics and data and how we handle data and whatnot.
I would answer that question. Again, it's very similar with a framework of enabling using trusted AI, which starts with your trusted data on Cloud Lake and AWS, and ensuring from that trusted data, you can derive trusted features, which serve to have trusted analytics, right? Which then serves to have trusted signal, which as the output or the insight that then can be integrated into your workflow or applications. I think within that trusted AI framework is exactly what Shree's talking about. It enables you to execute responsible AI around security and governance and ethics and explainability. It creates that kind of governing framework, again, all rolling up to trusted AI.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Thanks for bringing that up. Thank you, Katerina and Shree, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. Also, thank you to everyone listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's podcast. For further information on what we talked about, please visit Teradata.com's partners page and select AWS.
Thanks, Doug and Katrina.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Shree.